That should last you a while. My name is Allison Carter. I'm 33 years old. My mother set $200 on the kitchen counter when I was 11 and walked out the back door. No note. No number. 22 years of silence. Last month, she sat across from me at a diner booth in Millbrook. Her hands were shaking before I even opened my checkbook. When she unfolded what I'd written, she looked at me the way you'd look at a locked door you forgot how to open. If stories like mine matter to you, that subscribe button means more than you know. Let me take you back to where this started. Millbrook, Virginia. A town where everyone waves from their porch, and the pharmacy still has a soda counter. Our house sat at the end of Clover Lane. White clapboard, green shutters. A swing set in the backyard that my father put up the weekend I was born because he said every kid deserves something to come home to. My father, Keith Carter, worked at Davenport Manufacturing. Stamping press operator. He left the house at 5:15 every morning and came home at 4 with grease under his fingernails and a thermos he never remembered to wash. He earned $16.40 an hour. I know the number because he left his pay stubs on the kitchen counter. Same counter. Different math. He was quiet. Not cold. Quiet. The kind of man who showed up to everything and said almost nothing about it. He drove me to school in a Ford Ranger with a bench seat and no radio because the antenna broke in '98 and he never fixed it. He made pancakes on Saturday mornings. Bisquick from the yellow box. He burned the edges every time and I never told him because the burnt parts meant he was trying. My mother, Diane, was something else entirely. She smiled at people the way a lamp lights a room. Bright, warm. And when she left, everything went dark. I was 6 the first time she forgot me. Kindergarten pickup. 3:15. I sat on the front steps of Millbrook Elementary with my backpack and my lunchbox and watched every other car pull up to the curb. Mrs. Lyndon's silver minivan. Hoffman's black truck. The crossing guard's whistle blew at 3:30 and again at 4. By 4:15, the steps were empty. Just me and the janitor, Mr. Polk, who sat on the bench by the flagpole and pretended to eat his sandwich so I wouldn't feel alone. Dad arrived at 5 to 10, still in his work coveralls, grease on his hands. He apologized to Mr. Polk. He apologized to the front office. He scooped me up and carried me to the truck and buckled me in and said, "I'm sorry, baby." I came as fast as I could. He smelled like machine oil and sweat and Folger's coffee from the break room. I didn't know where my mother was. He didn't explain. He just drove me home and made Kraft mac and cheese and we ate it on the couch watching Wheel of Fortune. I was 8 when she missed the talent show. Millbrook Elementary Spring Showcase. I played piano for Elise. I'd practiced for 2 months on the upright at school because we didn't have a piano at home. Dad saved a seat. Row 3, seat 7. He put his jacket on it. He put a program on top of the jacket. He wrote "reserved" on the program in block letters with a Sharpie because that was the kind of man he was. The kind who reserves a seat with a Sharpie and means it. The seat stayed empty. Diane didn't come. I played the whole piece staring at that jacket. At intermission, I walked to the back row to get a drink from the water fountain. Grandma Ruth was sitting there. Last row, aisle seat. She was wearing her church coat and her good shoes, and she smelled like Jergens lotion and peppermint. She lived 4 hours away in Dalton. Just happened to be in the area, she said. She wasn't in the area. She was never in the area. Dalton is 4 hours from Millbrook on a good day, and Ruth Carter didn't drive highways after dark. She'd left at noon to make it by 7. She'd driven 4 hours because her son called her and said, "Allison has a piano recital tonight, and her mother isn't coming." That was Ruth. That was always Ruth. I was 9 at Christmas. Dad saved for months. He worked overtime in November. Double shifts the first 2 weeks of December. He bought me a used bicycle from the classifieds. A blue Schwinn with a white basket and handlebar streamers. He hid it in the garage behind the lawnmower and wrapped it in a bedsheet because we didn't have wrapping paper big enough. Mom gave me a card. A generic card from the gas station rack. The kind with a cartoon snowman on the front and Merry Christmas in gold script that comes pre-printed so you don't even have to write it yourself. Inside, one word. Mom, no heart. No, I love you. No gift. Just a card she grabbed between filling up the tank and buying a pack of Marlboro Lights. She left at 2 in the afternoon. Said she had errands. She came back at midnight. I know because I lay in bed and listened for the back door. The latch had a specific click. Metal on metal. I'd memorized it the way you memorize a sound that means someone you love is still there. Midnight. The click. The creak of the hallway floor. The bathroom sink running for 30 seconds. Then silence. I was 10 when I found the suitcase. Behind the water heater in the utility closet, brown leather, scuffed corners. It wasn't ours. We didn't own luggage. We'd never taken a trip. I found it while looking for the mop bucket because I'd spilled grape juice on the kitchen floor and I didn't want Dad to see. The suitcase was packed. 3 blouses, 2 pairs of jeans, a toiletry bag with a zipper, a manila envelope I didn't open. I put the mop bucket back. I cleaned up the grape juice. I didn't tell anyone. 2 weeks later, I heard her on the phone. It was past my bedtime. The hallway was dark. The kitchen light was on, and she was standing by the window with the cordless pressed to her ear, and her voice was low, the way adults talk when they think the child is asleep. I can't do this anymore. This isn't my life. 7 words. I was 10. I didn't know what this meant. I thought she was talking about the phone call. I thought she was talking about the dishes. I thought she was talking about something that would be over by morning. She was talking about me. I was 11 when she left. October. A Tuesday. The leaves were turning and the kitchen smelled like coffee and dish soap. Dad was at work. I came home on the school bus at 3:22. Backpack on one shoulder, permission slip for the science museum in my folder. I walked through the back door the way I always did, dropping my bag on the chair, reaching for the Chips Ahoy on the second shelf. The counter. 10 $20 bills, fanned out under a coffee mug. The mug said, World's Greatest Mom. White ceramic with red letters. I'd bought it for her at the Dollar General for Mother's Day when I was 7. $3.49. Dad helped me pick it out. I thought it was the most beautiful thing in the store. $200 in 20s, held down by a coffee mug that said, World's Greatest Mom. You can't make that up. I almost laughed. Almost. No note. No phone number. No explanation. I walked to her bedroom. The closet door was open. The hangers were empty. Not all of them. She'd left the winter coat. The one from Goodwill with the loose button. She'd taken everything else. The brown leather suitcase from behind the water heater was gone. Her car, gone. The driveway was just oil stains on concrete. I sat at the kitchen counter for 3 hours. I didn't call anyone. I didn't cry. I counted the money 4 times. 10 20s. $200. I arranged them in a row. I put them back under the mug. I sat there and listened to the clock above the stove tick. 11 years old. Alone. In a kitchen that still smelled like her coffee. Dad came home at 4:15. Early. He'd gotten a call from someone. Maybe the neighbor saw the car leave. Maybe he just knew. He walked through the back door, and he looked at the counter, and he looked at me, and he sat down on the floor next to the dishwasher and put his hands over his face. His hands were shaking. Keith Carter. The man who ran a stamping press for 8 hours a day and never flinched. His hands were shaking so hard the zipper on his coveralls rattled against the linoleum. I sat on the floor next to him. We didn't say anything. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. The last of the October sun came through the window above the sink and made a rectangle of light on the floor between us. He called Ruth at 7:30. I heard one sentence. "She's gone, Mom." Ruth drove 4 hours. She arrived at 11:15 p.m. She came through the front door with a Kroger bag full of groceries and her quilted overnight bag and her reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She didn't ask questions. She didn't cry. She looked at the money on the counter, and she looked at the mug, and she picked up both and put them in the cabinet above the refrigerator, where I couldn't see them. She made pot roast the next morning, 7 a.m., in a kitchen that wasn't hers, in a town she didn't live in, for a son who couldn't speak and a granddaughter who hadn't slept. She peeled the potatoes with a paring knife and hummed something I didn't recognize, and when the roast went in the oven, she sat down across from me at the counter and put her hands on mine. "We're going to be fine. You hear me? Fine." Ruth never said one bad word about Diane. Not once. Not in 12 years. She never made excuses either. She just moved in, drove 4 hours, unpacked her bag, put her Folgers in the percolator, and stayed. She slept in the guest room that became her room. She drove me to school in her Buick LeSabre that smelled like peppermint and AM radio. She taught me to cook. She taught me to iron. She taught me that showing up is not the minimum. It's the whole thing. She made it true. We were fine. But fine is a big word. And most of the territory it covers is hard. The betrayals didn't stop when Diane left. They kept arriving, one at a time, like bills in the mail you didn't know you owed. Dad found out first. The joint savings account. She'd withdrawn everything the day before she left. $8,400. Every penny they'd put away in 11 years of marriage. The teller at Millbrook Savings told Dad she came in at 10:15 on a Monday morning. Smiled. Asked for a cashier's check. Made to herself. Pleasant as always, the teller said. She cleaned out a family savings and she was pleasant about it. Then the credit cards. 2 of them. Both in Dad's name. She'd maxed them. One at a department store in Richmond. One at a furniture outlet in Charlottesville. $11,000 in charges she'd made on cards she couldn't be held accountable for because her name wasn't on them. Dad found out when the statements came in November. He sat at the kitchen table with a calculator and a yellow legal pad and added the numbers 3 times because he didn't believe them. $19,400. That's what Diane Carter left behind, not counting the daughter. I was 14 when my cousin Jessica told me. We were at a family reunion in Dalton, sitting on the porch while the adults played cards inside. Jessica was 16, and she knew things the way 16-year-olds know things, from listening to conversations she wasn't supposed to hear. "Your mom has a house in Virginia Beach," she said, "with a pool." I was washing dishes at May's Diner that summer for $6.75 an hour. I was wearing Dollar General sneakers. I was eating off-brand cereal. My mother had a pool. I processed this standing at the industrial sink in May's kitchen with my hands in water so hot it turned my forearms red. I processed it the way I processed everything about Diane, quietly, in a place where no one could see my face. At 16, I found her on Facebook. I don't know why I looked. Maybe I thought I was old enough. Maybe I thought the knowing would be easier than the wondering. It wasn't. Her name was Diane Lawson Brooks. New last name. New husband. Brad. Tall. Gray at the temples. The kind of man who wears a fleece vest over a button-down and calls it casual. Their house was a white colonial with black shutters. A lawn service. A Lexus in the driveway. There were photos from Hilton Head. Photos from a Christmas party with matching pajamas. Photos of a girl named Taylor, Brad's daughter, 12 years old. Braces. Straight teeth by 14, probably. I never got braces. Couldn't afford them. My bottom teeth still overlap on the left side. 2 millimeters. I've measured. There were photos of Diane and Taylor at a nail salon, Diane and Taylor at a bakery, Diane and Taylor holding shopping bags from stores I'd only ever walked past, Kate Spade, Anthropology, the kind of stores that smell like linen and candles and money that somebody else earned. She was living the life she left us to find. And the girl in the photos looked about the age I was when she left. I showed Grandma Ruth once. I didn't mean to. She was sitting at the kitchen table with her coffee, and I had my laptop open, and she leaned over to look at something, and the screen was open to Diane's page. A photo of Diane and Taylor at the beach. Matching sunglasses. The kind you buy at a resort gift shop. Ruth looked at the photo for 3 seconds. She took off her reading glasses. She folded them. She set them on the table. She picked up her coffee. "Well," she said, "that's a nice beach." That was it. That was all she said. And it was more than enough. Because what she didn't say filled the kitchen. She didn't say it's not fair. She didn't say you deserve better. She didn't say your mother is a terrible person. She just acknowledged a nice beach and drank her coffee and let me figure out the rest on my own. That's the kind of woman Ruth Carter was. She gave you room to feel what you needed to feel without telling you what it should be. I was 17 when I called her. The school counselor, Mrs. Davis, helped me find the number. She said it might give me closure. I remember thinking that was a word adults used when they didn't know what else to offer. Diane picked up on the 3rd ring. Allison, a pause. The kind that lasts 1 second but holds 11 years. "Oh, hi. I don't remember what I said. Something about wanting to talk. Something about wanting to understand." She said, "Sweetheart, you chose to stay with your father. That was your decision. I asked you to come. You said no." I was standing in the hallway outside the guidance office. The floor was gray tile. A kid walked past with a hall pass. The fluorescent light above me buzzed. She said, "I chose." I was 11. I came home from school and my mother was gone. I didn't choose anything. I found 10/20s under a coffee mug and an empty closet and a father sitting on the kitchen floor with his hands shaking. That's not a choice. That's a crime scene. She told her new family I was troubled. "My first daughter has some issues," she told Brad's relatives. "We don't talk because she's going through things." They nodded. They believed her. Because it's easier to believe a pleasant woman with a new kitchen than to ask what kind of mother leaves $200 and a mug on a counter and drives away. She sent Christmas cards to the old neighbors. Every year. Mrs. Henderson at the post office mentioned it to me when I was 15. "Your mama sent the prettiest card this year, honey. A cardinal on a branch." She said it kindly. She didn't know. Mrs. Henderson didn't know that Diane sent cards to everyone on Clover Lane except the house she used to live in. She sent a cardinal to the neighbors and not one word to her daughter. I was standing in the post office lobby holding a package Ruth had asked me to mail. Peppermint bark for a friend in Columbus. I smiled at Mrs. Henderson. I said, "That's nice." I walked to the counter. I mailed the package. I sat in Ruth's Buick in the parking lot for 10 minutes, with my hands on the steering wheel and my eyes on the dashboard, and I didn't cry, because I'd already used up all the crying that year on the phone call. Some people leave footprints. Diane left paper cuts. Small. Almost invisible. They only sting when you touch them by accident. I got my first job at 14. Dishwasher at May's Diner on Main Street. $6.75 an hour. May Henderson hired me because she knew my grandmother, and because I showed up 10 minutes early to the interview in a blouse I'd ironed myself. May didn't ask about my mother. She asked if I could carry a bus tub. I could. I was small, but I was strong. You get strong when the option is strong or gone. May gave me shifts after school. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. She fed me. Every shift, a plate appeared at the back counter. Meatloaf Monday. Fish Friday. Leftovers, May said. They weren't leftovers. They were plates she made fresh and set aside before the dinner rush. I knew because the bread was always warm. At 16, I added a weekend job. CVS cashier. Register 4. I ran the front counter Saturday and Sunday, and I memorized the price of everything in the cold medicine aisle because Tom Brennan, the pharmacist, said an employee who knows the inventory is an employee who stays. Tom knew me. Everybody in Millbrook knew me. The Carter girl. The one whose mother left. They didn't say it to my face, but I could feel it in the extra nickel they left in the tip jar and the way Mrs. Henderson always asked if I was eating enough. I graduated valedictorian. 14 people at the ceremony. Not because the class was small, because it was Millbrook. Grandma Ruth sat in the front row with a camcorder she didn't know how to use. She held it sideways for the first 10 minutes. The footage is tilted. I've watched it 100 times. It's the best thing I own. Community college first. 2 years at Blue Ridge. Then the state nursing program at UVA. 3 jobs. May's Diner on weekends, CVS on Thursday nights, and weekend caretaker at Cedar Brook Assisted Living, where I fed Mrs. Gunderson her oatmeal at 7 a.m. and read Mr. Patton his mail because his eyes were going. I had $847 in my bank account the day I started clinicals. I carried that number in my head like a countdown. Every grocery run, every tank of gas, every copay at the student health center, 847, minus 12, minus 38, minus 15. I could tell you the balance on any given Tuesday because the alternative to knowing was going to zero. Ruth sent me $20 every week, in an envelope, with a stamp she bought at the Dalton post office. Always a note inside, never more than 1 sentence. Eat something green. Don't skip breakfast. I'm proud of you. She was on a fixed income, Social Security, and a small pension from the school district where she'd worked the cafeteria for 23 years. $20 a week was not nothing to Ruth Carter. It was probably lunch on Thursday. She sent it anyway. Every week. For 2 years. I saved every note. I have a shoebox full of them in my closet. I ate $3.49 fish sticks from the freezer aisle for 2 years. 5 sticks per box. 2 boxes a week. I could tell you the sodium content from memory. 780 milligrams per serving. My blood pressure should have been a disaster, but I was 22 and running on Spite and instant coffee. Susan Whitfield, nursing professor. Gray hair she wore in a braid. Reading glasses on a chain. She pulled me aside after my second clinical rotation and said, "You see the patient, not the chart. That's rare. Don't let anyone teach you out of it." She wrote me a recommendation letter that opened every door I knocked on. I never read the letter. I didn't need to. Whatever she wrote, it was enough. It was more than enough. There was one night in my second year, clinical rotation in the ER, 11 p.m. A woman came in, 50-ish, chest pain. She was alone. No emergency contact on the form. She looked at me while I was taking her vitals and said, "Is there someone you can call?" I don't have anyone to call. I held her hand while we waited for the doctor. I held it for 40 minutes. Her name was Barbara. Her pulse was 92. She asked me twice if I was going to leave. I told her I wasn't going anywhere. She fell asleep holding my wrist. Whitfield found me there at midnight. She didn't say anything. She just pulled up a chair and sat next to me until the attending arrived. That night, I understood what kind of nurse I wanted to be. The kind who stays. I got my RN license at 25. Badge number 1174. I held that badge in my hands in the parking lot outside the testing center, and I sat in my car for 10 minutes. Not crying, not shaking, just holding it. The first time anyone official had put my name on something and handed it to me like I'd earned it, my first real paycheck. $2,341 after taxes. Direct deposit. I checked my balance 4 times because I'd never seen a number that big attached to my name. I bought Grandma Ruth a rocking chair. Oak. $289 at Thompson's Furniture on Route 11. I had it delivered to the house on a Saturday while she was at church. When she came home and saw it on the porch, she sat down in it and didn't say anything for a full minute. Her hands on the armrests, her eyes on the yard. Then, this is the nicest thing anyone ever gave me. She was 81. She'd raised a granddaughter. She'd driven 4 hours in the dark. She'd made 10,000 meals in a kitchen that wasn't hers. And a $289 rocking chair was the nicest thing anyone ever gave her. That tells you everything about Ruth Carter. And everything about what Diane Carter left behind. What would you do? If the woman who left you with $200 and never looked back suddenly needed you, would you open the door? Or would you slide the bolt? Tell me in the comments. Because it gets worse. Dad's plant downsized when I was 27. Davenport Manufacturing cut the second shift. Dad was 58. 26 years on the floor. They gave him a plaque and 2 weeks severance. I paid his mortgage for 6 months. Direct deposit to his bank. He never knew it was me. I told the bank it was an anonymous gift from the Millbrook Veterans Association. He wasn't a veteran, but he was the kind of man who would have believed that a veterans group pays strangers mortgages because he was the kind of man who would have done it himself. At 28, charge nurse at Millbrook Memorial. Small house on Birch Drive with a porch. My porch, white railing, 2 chairs, a hanging fern that Ruth gave me the day I moved in. She drove 4 hours with a fern in a ceramic pot, wedged between the passenger seat and the center console of her Buick. The pot had a crack in it. She'd wrapped it in painter's tape. "It'll hold," she said. It held. It's still holding. I drove past May's diner every morning on my way to the hospital. I waved at May through the window. She waved back. Every day. For 5 years. Some mornings she held up a coffee cup. Some mornings she held up a muffin in a napkin. I pulled over exactly once a week. Tuesdays. Because Tuesdays were the day Diane left, and I decided to make them the day I showed up instead. The lawyer's letter was 6 paragraphs long. 6 paragraphs to ask for $200,000 from a woman she left with $200. Math was never Diane's strong suit. I was 33. Charge nurse. Mortgage paid. Dad retired, living 20 minutes away. He came over on Sundays for pot roast. Ruth's recipe. Carrots, potatoes, rosemary, 2 place settings. Sometimes 3. Force of habit. Grandma Ruth had passed 3 years before. 84 years old. In her sleep. In the rocking chair. The oak one. The one I bought her. They found her on a Sunday morning with her reading glasses on and her Bible open to Psalms and a cup of Folgers on the table beside her that had gone cold. She left me the rocking chair, the recipe box, and a note in her handwriting on a piece of stationery she'd kept in her nightstand. You were never what she left behind. You were what she missed. I framed it. It hangs above the mantel. Then, a manila envelope in the mailbox. Tuesday. The return address read Wallace and Dean, Attorneys at Law, Richmond, Virginia. I opened it on the porch. In Ruth's rocking chair. Dear Miss Carter, we represent your mother, Diane Lawson Brooks. Mrs. Brooks requires a critical medical procedure estimated at $200,000. Her insurance has lapsed, and her personal resources are insufficient. She has asked us to reach out to you regarding possible assistance. 6 paragraphs, typed on letterhead with embossed edges, a stamped return envelope included. Like I was being billed for something. I read it twice. I set it on the armrest. I looked at the yard. I called Dad. He picked up on the second ring. Long silence after I told him. The kind of silence that holds 22 years of a man deciding what not to say. That's your call, kiddo. Whatever you decide, I'm behind you. That was Keith Carter. That was always Keith Carter. I sat on the porch for an hour. I thought about Ruth, about the rocking chair, about $6.75 dishwashing shifts and fish sticks, and a badge that said 1,174. I thought about a kitchen counter and 10/20s under a mug. Then I went inside. I opened my checkbook. I wrote 1 check. I folded it into an envelope. I drove to May's Diner, parked in the lot, walked in, sat at the counter. May brought me coffee without asking. Black. The way she'd been bringing it since I was 22. I need a booth on Saturday, I said. Noon. May looked at me over her reading glasses. Which booth? 4. By the register. She didn't ask why. She just nodded. May Henderson had known me for 19 years. She knew when a question was welcome and when it wasn't. I called the lawyer from the parking lot. Tell her I'll meet her. Saturday. Noon. May's Diner, 114, Main Street, Millbrook. The lawyer paused. She was hoping you might. Saturday. Noon. May's. I chose the diner because that's where I washed dishes at 14. Where May fed me when Diane didn't. Where I earned my first paycheck. Where the counter has a scratch near the register that I put there carrying a tray that was too heavy for my arms. This was my ground. Saturday. Noon. Winter sun through the front windows of May's Diner. The glass was streaked from a rain 2 days before that nobody had cleaned off yet. The specials board said meatloaf and mashed. The coffee was fresh. The radio behind the counter played something quiet I didn't recognize. I arrived at 11:45. Booth 4. By the register. I sat facing the door. I ordered coffee. Black. May brought it herself. She set it down and put her hand on my shoulder for exactly 2 seconds. You sure about this, honey? I've been sure for 22 years. May went back behind the counter. She picked up a rag. She didn't wipe anything. She just held it. The diner had 11 people in it. May behind the counter. Tom Brennan, the pharmacist, in booth 2 with his wife. 2 construction workers at the counter in Carhartt jackets. A young mother with a toddler near the window. The toddler was eating crackers and dropping every third one on the floor. Linda Marsh, my colleague from the hospital, was picking up a to-go order by the register. She saw me and waved. I waved back. She didn't sit down. Something in my face told her not to. Old Mr. Henderson, Grandma Ruth's friend from church, was reading the paper alone in booth 6. He'd been eating Saturday lunch at May's for 30 years. He looked up when the door opened at 12:08. He knew. Everyone in Millbrook knew. A town of 4,000 people doesn't keep a secret. It just keeps it quiet. Diane walked in at 12:08. She was 55, thinner than I expected, gray at the temples she didn't used to have. Her coat was from a thrift store. I knew the stitching. Savers on Route 29. The seams run uneven on the left side. Her purse was from Goodwill, pleather with a brass clasp. Her shoes had seen better pavement. The heels were worn down on the outside edges the way shoes wear when someone walks like they're always leaning away from where they are. She saw me. She stopped. For 1 second, she stood in the doorway with the winter light behind her, and she looked exactly like every memory I'd ever tried to let go of. Same brown eyes, same jawline, same way of holding her purse with both hands like she was protecting something inside it. She walked to the booth. She slid in across from me. The vinyl seat made a sound. She put her purse on the seat beside her. Allison. She said my name carefully, the way you'd read a name off a prescription bottle, like she was checking the dosage. You look? She started, stopped. Her eyes moved across my face. You look just like your grandmother. I didn't help her. Silence. The clock above the coffee station. The clink of a fork from the construction workers. The toddler dropping another cracker. I know I wasn't. I wasn't a perfect mother. I sipped my coffee, set it down, waited. I was 20 when I had you. I didn't know how to be a mother. I was scared. I was overwhelmed. Your father and I, we weren't good together. She paused. I didn't fill it. I've thought about you every day. Every single day. I set down the cup. The ceramic clicked against the saucer. A small sound. Every sound was small in that booth. Every sound mattered. Which day? The day I sat on the school steps for 3 hours because you forgot to pick me up? The talent show you missed? The Christmas you gave me a gas station card and left at 2 in the afternoon? Diane's mouth opened, closed. Or the day I found out about the pool? Her hand went flat on the table. Your father made it impossible. Her voice changed. Tighter. Practiced. He was controlling. He wouldn't let me see you. Dad worked double shifts at the plant for 6 years after you left. He taught me to drive in the Walmart parking lot in a Ford Ranger with no radio. He cried at my graduation. He cried so hard he shook the camcorder and the footage is sideways. The only thing he controlled was making sure I ate dinner. That's not. I got my own phone at 15. Same number for 18 years. You could have called any time. Diane looked at the table. Her fingers curled inward, one at a time. I tried to come back. Twice. Your father. Dad never changed the locks. The door was never locked. I know, because I checked it every night for 2 years. Every single night. I was 11 and 12 and 13 years old, checking a door at midnight, waiting for a car in the driveway that never came. Do you think she deserved every second of what came next? Because it's not over yet. Her hand reached across the table toward mine. I didn't move, didn't pull away, didn't meet her halfway. I made mistakes, Allison. Terrible mistakes. But I'm here now. You're here because you need $200,000. The diner went quiet. Not all at once. In pieces. May stopped wiping the counter. Tom Brennan set down his fork. His wife's hand went to his arm. Henderson folded his newspaper. Slowly, crease by crease. The way you fold something when you want your hands to be busy while your ears are working. Yes. Her voice dropped. The procedure. My insurance. Brad left. He took the house, the accounts. Taylor won't speak to me. I have nothing. Taylor won't speak to you? She says I wasn't. Present enough. Present enough. That's a generous way to say it. Brad took the house? He filed 8 months ago. I got a studio apartment on the east side of Richmond. $675 a month. I work part-time at a craft store. Alexis in the driveway. Hilton had vacations. Kate spade bags. And now she works at a craft store and lives in a studio, and her stepdaughter used the same word about her that I would have used at 12. Not present. You cleaned out the savings account the day before you left, I said. $8,400. She didn't deny it. You maxed 2 credit cards in Dad's name. $11,000. He found out in November. He sat at the kitchen table with a calculator and added it 3 times because the number didn't make sense to a man who made $16.40 an hour. I was desperate. You were at a furniture outlet in Charlottesville. You were buying things for the house in Virginia Beach, the one with the pool. Tom Brennan's wife reached for her water glass and held it without drinking. The young mother near the window pulled her toddler a little closer. And you told Brad's family I was troubled. My first daughter has some issues. That's what you told them. Diane's eyes closed, opened, wet. You sent Christmas cards to Mrs. Henderson every year, a cardinal on a branch. And you never sent one to me. May set down the rag she was holding. She put both hands flat on the counter. I reached into my bag. A canvas bag, the one I carry to work. It has a stain on the strap from a coffee spill I never bothered cleaning. I pulled out an envelope. White. Standard. I placed it on the table between us. Same counter where I used to stack plates at 14. Different side. Your lawyer sent me a letter. 6 paragraphs. Very polite. I slid the envelope across the formica. I thought about it for 3 days. Diane looked at the envelope. She picked it up. Her fingers were shaking. She opened the flap. She pulled out the check. She unfolded it. Her eyes moved left to right. Stopped. Moved back to the beginning. Read again. Her lips parted. No sound. Her hand dropped to the table. The check was still between her fingers, but her fingers had gone slack, the way hands go when the brain stops sending instructions. $200. Even. That should last you a while. The exact words. The exact amount. 22 years later. Different counter. Different woman holding it. The diner held its breath. May's hand went to her mouth. Tom Brennan leaned back in his booth. His wife closed her eyes. Henderson took off his reading glasses and set them on the newspaper and stared at a spot on the wall. The young mother near the window stopped her toddler mid-cracker and looked at us the way you look at something you know you'll tell someone about later. Linda Marsh, standing by the register with her to-go bag, set the bag down on the counter and didn't pick it up. One of the construction workers turned on his stool. Slowly, the way you turn when you know you're not supposed to be looking, but you can't help it. Diane stared at the check, then at me. That's not. That's exactly what you left me. Her coffee sat untouched, getting cold. The steam had stopped rising. I was 11. You put 10/20s under a coffee mug that said World's Greatest Mom. You took $8,400 from the savings account. You maxed 2 credit cards in Dad's name. And you drove to Virginia to start a life with a pool. Each sentence landed like a closing door. I bought my own braces at 21. Paid for them in installments over 2 years. I ate fish sticks for 2 years. 780 milligrams of sodium per serving. I worked 3 jobs through nursing school. I bought Grandma Ruth a rocking chair with my first real paycheck because nobody had ever bought her anything. Ruth raised me. Ruth showed up. Ruth drove 4 hours the night you left because Dad couldn't stop his hands from shaking long enough to make dinner. You didn't come to her funeral? Diane's voice cracked. I didn't know. She died 3 years ago. It was in the county paper. The one you used to read. Henderson bowed his head. He'd known Ruth for 40 years. He'd been a pallbearer at her funeral. He was crying, not loudly. The kind of crying where only your shoulders move. Diane sat in that booth with a $200 check on the table and 22 years of silence around her, like walls. She didn't reach for the check. She didn't push it back. She sat there. I used to check the door every night, I said. For 2 years. Every night. 11, 12, 13 years old. Standing in the dark hallway in my pajamas, touching the deadbolt to make sure it wasn't locked. Because if it was unlocked, it meant you could still come back. If it was unlocked, It meant we were still waiting. I picked up my coffee, finished it, set it down. I'm not waiting anymore. I stood up. I put my bag on my shoulder. Diane sat there. She didn't move. The check was on the table between her hands. She was staring at it the way you stare at a photograph of someone you used to be. Not reading the number anymore. Just looking at what it meant. The diner was still quiet. The kind of quiet that happens when a room full of strangers all decide at the same time that they're not going to pretend they didn't hear. May had both hands on the counter. Tom Brennan's wife was pressing a napkin to her eyes. One of the construction workers had turned fully on his stool and was staring at his coffee like it had just told him something. The young mother had picked up her toddler and was holding him against her chest with one hand on the back of his head. Henderson stood up, slowly. He picked up his newspaper and his coat, and he walked past our booth on his way to the door. He stopped. He looked at me, not at Diane, at me. He put his hand on my shoulder for 2 seconds. He didn't say a word. He walked out. The bell above the door rang once. I looked at Diane one more time. 55 years old. Thinner than she should be. Gray at the temples. Thrift store coat. A studio apartment and a part-time job at a craft store. The stepdaughter stopped talking to her. The husband took the house. The same pattern. The same quiet leaving she'd perfected 22 years ago. Only this time, she was on the other side of it. Diane? She looked up, her eyes red, her hands flat on the table on either side of a check for $200. You asked your lawyer to reach out to me about possible assistance. There it is. $200. The same amount you decided I was worth when I was 11. I walked out. The bell above the door rang. The winter air hit my face. Cold, clean. The parking lot smelled like pine and exhaust, and the first snow that hadn't fallen yet, but was coming. May charged me $4.50 for the coffee. I'd left a 20 on the table. Some people know how to tip. Some people know how to leave. I drove home, down Main Street, past the pharmacy where Tom Brennan first sold me cough drops when I was 12 and told me I'd be fine, past the CVS where I worked, Register 4, past the turn for Clover Lane, where a white clapboard house with green shutters still sits at the end of the street, where a swing set rusted in the backyard because nobody took it down. I sat in Grandma Ruth's rocking chair on the porch. Oak. Still solid. Still there. The way Ruth built everything. The way Ruth was. I wrote a second check that afternoon. $200,000 to the children's wing at Millbrook Memorial Hospital. In the name of Ruth Carter. A plaque went up 3 weeks later. Bronze. On the wall outside the pediatric ward. Ruth Carter Wing. Because showing up is the whole thing. Not to punish Diane. The money was always going to go where it could do the most good. Ruth would have wanted it that way. Ruth, who drove 4 hours in the dark. Ruth, who made pot roast at 7 a.m. Ruth, who sat in the back row of a talent show and said she happened to be in the area. The money went where it belonged. The day the plaque went up, I stood in the hallway and looked at it for a long time. Bronze letters on a cream wall. Ruth Carter Wing. A nurse walked past me and said, "Did you know her?" I said, "She raised me." The nurse nodded. She must have been something. I said, "She was everything." The nurse smiled and kept walking, and I stood there for another minute with my hand on the wall next to the plaque. The wall was cool. The letters were warm from the overhead light. Ruth Carter. 4 hours in the dark. Pot roast at 7 a.m. We're going to be fine. Brad filed for divorce 8 months before Diane came to the diner. He kept the house. The white colonial with the black shutters. The lawn service. The Lexus. Diane got a studio apartment and a part-time job and the exact kind of quiet that she'd spent 22 years running from. Taylor cut contact 2 years ago. Same pattern. The same quiet erasure that Diane taught her. You don't have to hit someone to hurt them. You just have to stop showing up. Taylor learned that from the best. The surgery. Diane found a charity program through the hospital in Richmond. Slower, less certain, but available. She didn't need my money. She needed my forgiveness. She didn't get either. 3 people in that diner watched me slide that check across the table. By Tuesday, the whole town knew. Not because anyone gossiped with malice, because some stories tell themselves. They walk out the door of a diner and into the parking lot and down Main Street, and by the time the sun goes down, the whole town is holding the same quiet truth. The Carter girl gave her mother back exactly what she'd been given. Not a dollar more. Not a word less. Dad comes over every Sunday. We make pot roast. Ruth's recipe. Carrots, potatoes, rosemary. He sets 3 places at the table. Force of habit. Neither of us corrects it. The 3rd plate sits there, clean, at the end of the counter, next to the salt shaker and the napkin holder Ruth bought at a yard sale in Dalton 20 years ago. A place for a woman who earned it. Not the one who left. Last month, I got promoted. Nursing director. New office on the 3rd floor with a window overlooking the parking lot where Dad taught me to parallel park in the Ford Ranger when I was 16. There's a desk with my name on it. A nameplate. Black base, gold letters. Allison Carter, RN, nursing director. I sat at that desk on my first day, and I looked at the nameplate and I looked out the window at the parking lot, and I thought about a man in coveralls who never once said he was tired. He was, but he never said it. I called Dad that evening, told him about the office, the nameplate, the window. He was quiet for a moment. Then, Ruth would have driven 4 hours for this. I laughed. He laughed. The kind of laugh that comes from a place so deep it's almost something else. He was right. She would have. She would have driven 4 hours and sat in the lobby and told every person who walked past that her granddaughter was the nursing director. And she would have said she just happened to be in the area. I don't hate Diane. Hate takes space. I don't have to spare. I gave her back exactly what she left me, and I'm not sorry. Some debts don't grow interest. They grow memory. And memory has a way of keeping the books that banks won't. If she calls, I'll listen. But I won't chase a woman who taught me exactly what leaving looks like. The counter at May's Diner has a scratch near the register. I know, because I put it there at 14, carrying a tray that was too heavy for my arms. 22 years later, I slid a check across that same counter. Same amount. Different woman holding it. My name is Allison Carter. I'm 33 years old. I'm a nurse. I'm Keith's daughter. I'm Ruth's granddaughter. And I am exactly what my mother missed. Some debts don't come with interest. They come with memory. And memory has its own math. She left me a number, and I carried it for 22 years. Turns out the answer was giving it back. If you're carrying someone else's number, sit with it. You'll know when it's time. I'll be here on the porch. Come back when you're ready.